Welcome back to the deep dive. And you know, I have to be honest with you.
Ooh.
When I first grabbed the source material for today, I was fully prepared for, well, a fun time. I was ready to grab the popcorn.
I can see why.
I looked at the title on the stack, The Ballad of the Aliens by Weerathunga W Nimal, and I just thought, okay, we are pivoting.
Right.
We're finally doing sci-fi. I was expecting, you know, maybe a critique of those old 1950s creature features, or, I don't know, a modern take on War of the Worlds. Who doesn't love a good alien invasion?
It is a completely reasonable assumption to make.
Yeah.
You scan the first few lines of the text, and it checks every single box for that genre.
Yeah, it does.
You have descriptions of scaled skin, you get golden eyes, you have these strange visitors who come from skies beyond the stars.
Yeah.
It feels like the script for a summer blockbuster.
Exactly. It has all the visuals, the atmosphere, the dread, but then you keep reading, and you realize pretty quickly that the popcorn needs to go away, and you probably need to sit up a little straighter and pay attention.
Yeah.
Because this isn't about little green men landing a saucer on the White House lawn, is it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the brilliance of the trap Nimal sets here. He uses the language of the extraterrestrial of the other to talk about something painfully, brutally terrestrial.
Right.
This is not a sci-fi story. It is a biting revolutionary manifesto disguised as a poem. The aliens are not Martians. They are a metaphor for a ruling class.
A ruling class that's become so wealthy, so isolated.
And so corrupt that they have effectively, mutated into a different species entirely.
That was the aha moment for me. It really hit me like a ton of bricks. We're not looking up at the sky wondering if we are alone in the universe. We're looking up at the penthouse.
We're looking at the gated communities on the hill.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to decode that metaphor. We need to figure out how the poet uses this imagery, of the predator and the monster to critique systemic inequality, dynastic wealth, and political corruption.
And we really need to look at the structure of the piece, too. Because Nimal builds a very specific narrative arc. There are 3 verses that establish the horror and the status quo, recurring choruses that reinforce the despair of the people, and then you have a bridge that suddenly shifts the energy from oppression to uprising.
It's a journey.
It is a journey. It goes from fear to anger and then finally to action.
Let's start with that fear. I want to zoom in on the physical descriptions in the first 2 verses because they are just so visceral.
They are.
The poet doesn't just say the rulers are bad people or that they're greedy. He describes them as having scaled skin, fanged smiles, and venom breath. I mean, why go that hard on the physical monstrosity? What does that get you?
It's a literary technique called othering, but this is, it's cranked up to 11 here.
Yeah.
Think about the function of a monster in literature or in folklore. A monster is something that consumes. It is, by definition, a predator. By giving the ruling class scaled skin, Nimal is stripping them of their humanity.
Okay, I see.
If they're described as human, even corrupt humans, maybe we can empathize with them. We might think, oh, maybe they're just misunderstood, or maybe they had a tough childhood. But you do not empathize with a reptile that has fangs.
Right, it creates an immediate barrier. A human smiles to connect with you, to share something.
Yeah.
A predator bares its fangs right before it attacks.
It completely changes the dynamic.
It shifts the whole relationship from ruler and subject to predator and prey.
Precisely. And look at the venom breath. That is such a specific, evocative choice. It implies that their corruption isn't just an action they take. It's atmospheric. It's environmental.
Just them being there.
Just their presence, their very breathing is toxic to the world around them. They poison the air just by existing in the same room. It suggests you cannot coexist with them without getting sick.
There is a line in verse 3 that really solidifies this parasitic nature for me. I had to read it twice. The text says, "One bite upon the neck of hope fulfills their darkest need." I just paused on that for a long time. They aren't biting a person. They are biting hope.
That is arguably the most chilling line in the entire poem. It moves the violence from the physical to the metaphysical.
Yeah.
If they were just stealing money, that's one thing. That's theft. But here, they are feeding on the vitality of the population. They are consuming the future.
It implies an addiction, doesn't it? Fulfills their darkest need. It sounds like a hunger they can't control.
It does. It suggests that subjugation is a biological hunger for them. They don't just want to be rich. They need to see others diminished to feel powerful.
It's a zero-sum game.
A total zero-sum game. For them to be the gods they believe they are, everyone else has to be, cattle. The destruction of your hope is the fuel for their power.
Yeah. Let's talk about where these cattle and gods live, because the geography in the poem is just as important as the biology.
Absolutely.
Verse 1 opens with, "They came from skies beyond the stars, from worlds we do not see." Now, if we accept your premise that this isn't sci-fi, how do we interpret worlds we do not see in a modern political context?
Well, think about the modern world of the ultra-elite, the 0.01%. Do you actually see their world?
Not really. I mean, maybe on Instagram. But in reality, it's all behind high walls, or it's in the back of a tinted SUV, or on some private island somewhere.
Exactly. It is a world we do not see. To the common folk, as the poem calls them, the lives of the oligarchs might as well be on another planet. They occupy distant alien territories.
So the poet is spatializing the wealth gap.
He is. It's not just a number in a bank account, it's a physical separation. They exist in a parallel dimension that only overlaps with ours when they want to take something from it.
The poem also mentions specifically that they dwell on hills and jungle lakes.
Right. They take the prime real estate.
Yeah.
They occupy the beautiful, secluded spots, the hills and jungle lakes where moonlit waters lie.
They're physically elevated.
They are physically elevated above the people. They look down on the rest of society, both literally from their hills and, of course, metaphorically from their status. It creates this sense of occupation. They haven't integrated into the land, they've conquered it, they've fenced off the best parts for themselves.
There's also this fascinating psychological flip happening here that I want to dig into.
It's okay.
Usually throughout history, when a regime wants to oppress a group of people, they dehumanize the victims. They call the poor rats or cockroaches or even aliens to justify treating them badly.
Yes, that's standard propaganda.
But here, Nimal flips the script completely. He's dehumanizing the powerful.
Which is a classic, albeit risky, revolutionary tactic. By labeling the elite as aliens, the poet is breaking the social contract. He's saying, we owe them no loyalty because they are not one of us. Think about it. Treason is a crime against your own people. But you can't commit treason against an invader. If the ruler is a monster, then the subject has a moral right, maybe even a duty to rebel.
It creates the psychological permission structure for what comes later.
That's it. For the uprising.
So we've established they are monsters, and they live apart from us in these worlds we do not see. But the poem spends a lot of time on how they stay there.
Right.
This isn't just about scary monsters, it's about economics. The text is very specific about the legitimacy of their wealth. Or, I should say, the lack of it.
It is never at any point described as earned, is it?
Never. The chorus says they wear borrowed crowns. Verse 2 talks about stolen riches.
That motif of theft is so central. Borrowed crowns is such a loaded phrase. It implies their authority is temporary, or maybe just performative.
Like they're playing dress up.
Exactly. They're playing dress up with power that ultimately belongs to the people. A borrowed object has to be returned eventually, and stolen riches creates this image of extraction. They haven't created value, they've siphoned it.
The line, "They steal our land, they drink our blood," is the most direct accusation of this. It brings us right back to that vampire imagery, but it links it to land ownership.
It's the idea that their luxury comes at the direct physical expense of the population. It's not just inequality, it's predation. But what I find even more interesting, and this is where the poem feels so incredibly modern, is what they do with that stolen wealth.
Right.
We get into verse 2 and the social structure of this elite class. The text says, "They never mix with common folk, too poisonous to know."
That line, "too poisonous to know," it works two ways, doesn't it?
It does.
It implies the common folk are too dangerous for the elites to touch, like we're the disease, but also that the elites are toxic to us. But then it follows up with, "They bind their blood to blood alone, their circles sealed and tight."
That is the definition of oligarchy. Bind their blood to blood alone. It's nepotism. It's dynastic marriage.
Yeah.
It's the closed-loop system where power is kept within the family or the clan.
They don't let outsiders in.
Never.
It completely destroys the myth of meritocracy. You know, that classic idea that if you just work hard enough, you can join the club.
The poem is saying, no, you can't. The club is sealed. Exactly. If you aren't born into that alien species, you will never become one. The circle is sealed and tight. And this isolationism, it serves a purpose. It allows them to operate in the dark. The poem says they live on lies and whisper deals and hide from honest light.
That contrast between light and dark is everywhere in this text.
It is. Honest light represents transparency, truth, accountability. These aliens can't survive in the light because their power is based on illusions and theft.
You shine a light on a monster, you see the zipper on the costume.
Right, you see the mechanism of the trick. They require the darkness of secrecy to maintain the illusion of their superiority.
Speaking of mechanisms, this is where I think the poem makes its most important pivot. We've talked about the individuals, the monsters themselves. But in verse 3 and chorus 3, the text stops talking about people and starts talking about systems.
He does.
This is where it goes from a creature feature to a full-on political thriller.
This is the shift from personal corruption to state capture. And it's arguably the most terrifying part of the poem because it shows the scale of the problem. It's not just that the king is bad, it's that the kingdom is rigged.
The chorus lists where the corruption lives. In laws, in robes, in holy ground. And then, they bend the gods, they blind the law.
They bend the gods. Just pause on that for a second. That is a massive accusation. It implies they've co-opted religious institutions to justify their rule.
Using faith as a shield.
They've taken the moral authority of the divine and twisted it to serve their own greed and blind the law. Well, that's the end of the justice system right there.
It's over.
Right. The robes, the judges, the courts are compromised. If the law is blind because they blinded it, there's no recourse for the common person. You can't sue an alien that owns the court. You can't appeal to fairness if the referee is on their payroll.
It creates a sense of total entrapment.
Yes, the very institutions meant to protect the weak have been weaponized against them.
And they do it with such style, too. We mentioned the fanged smiles earlier, but the chorus also says they use velvet words. This really struck me because it feels so relevant. It's not just brute force, it's PR.
That's the duality of modern oppression, isn't it? It's not always a boot stamping on a human face. Sometimes it's a press release.
Or a charismatic speech.
Velvet words and serpent sound. It's soft to the touch, it sounds pleasant, but the intent is venomous. It's the illusion of civility masking the reality of predation. They want you to thank them while they're robbing you.
The text says they rule by fear, by tooth, by coin.
That's the trifecta of control. Tooth is violence, the police state, the military, the threat of physical harm. Coin is bribery and economic pressure.
We're buying people off.
And fear is the psychological control. But the velvet words are the glue that holds it all together. It's the propaganda that tells you, we're doing this for your own good, or this is the only way.
It feels overwhelming. When you read those first 3 verses, it really feels like checkmate. They have the money, the law, the religion, the land, the guns. It feels like they've won.
It does.
But then, we get to the bridge, and the energy just shifts completely.
This is the pivot point of the entire piece. The architecture of exclusion starts to show its cracks.
It starts with a visual of that exclusion. The poor man knocks on marble doors that never open wide.
Such a powerful image. You can see the small, common hand knocking on this massive, impenetrable marble door. And inside, you have the high priests and lords and dynasties protecting their own.
It emphasizes that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed.
It is designed to keep the door shut. The knocking is futile.
But the knocking isn't the only thing happening. The text says, yet whispers grow like hidden fire beneath the nation's skin.
I love that imagery. Hidden
Yeah.
fire. It suggests that while the elites are up on their cool moonlit hills, something is heating up underground.
It's invisible at first.
Invisible, just whispers, but it's spreading. And beneath the nation's skin implies that the country itself is a living body, and it's reacting to the infection of these aliens. It's an immune response.
The body is fighting back.
It's fighting off the virus.
And here is where we get the reveal. The moment the movie twists, the poem says, when common hands take hold of power, the masks fall in.
The masks fall in. That confirms everything we suspected. They are not really aliens. They're not really gods. They are just people in masks.
The whole alien guys was a psychological operation.
A way to make them seem invincible. But notice the physics of that line. The masks fall in. They collapse inward.
It implies they're hollow, doesn't it? Like an empty shell.
Exactly. There's no substance behind the scary face. It reminds me of the ending of The Wizard of Oz. You pull back the curtain, and the giant, terrifying, floating head just shuts off. And you realize it's just a little man pulling levers.
And once you see the man behind the curtain, you can't be scared of the giant head anymore. The spell is broken.
That is the key. The power of the alien relies entirely on the belief that they are superior, that they are other, untouchable. Once the people realize the crowns are borrowed and the skin is just a costume, the hierarchy just dissolves.
The common hands are stronger than the fanged smiles.
Because the hands are real and the fangs are fake.
The poem wraps up with this real sense of inevitability. The choruses have this recurring promise. Truth will tear their kingdoms down, and dawn will hear the people's sound.
It's a promise of morning. We talked about how they hide from honest light and appear by the silver moon. The poem frames their rule as a long, dark night. But the final chorus shifts. It says, but not forever, not for long.
And then that final line, when common people rise as one, the earth will sing their song.
That last line is so vital. The earth will sing their song. It connects back to the idea of the aliens as unnatural invaders. They came from skies beyond the stars. But the people are of the earth.
So when the people rise,
The planet itself supports them. The natural order is restored. It's a vindication of the common folk. They aren't just taking political power. They are reclaiming their home from an invasive species.
it's a surprisingly hopeful ending for a poem that spends so much time describing venom and fangs and crushed hope.
It is. It moves from fear to anger and finally to agency. It's a roadmap for revolution. Step 1, recognize the oppressor is a predator. Step 2, understand their power is stolen. Step 3, realize their strength is just an illusion. And step 4, rise up.
So, taking a step back from the text, what does this all mean for us, for you listening? Why should we care about a poem about metaphorical aliens?
Because metaphors are how we process reality. We might not have lizard people running the government despite what some corners of the internet might tell you.
Right.
But we absolutely have circles sealed and tight. We have whispered deals made in rooms we are not allowed to enter. We have entities that bend the gods and blind the law.
It's a framework for analysis. It helps us see the patterns.
Exactly. Nimal's poem is a tool. It gives us a language to describe that disconnect between the rulers and the ruled. It reminds us to look at the velvet words of a politician or a CEO and listen for the serpent sound. It asks us to question where power comes from.
It's a reminder to check who is wearing the borrowed crown, and to remember that the doors don't open from the outside. You have to stop knocking and, as the poem suggests, take hold of power.
And ultimately, it tells us that they are terrified of us. That is the subtext of the whole piece. Why do they need the walls? Why do they need the masks? Why do they need the venom?
Because they're afraid.
Because they know that dawn will hear the people's sound, and they are terrified of the sunrise. They know their time is limited.
That is a powerful thought to hold on to. The poem tells us that this state of affairs, the inequality, the corruption, it's fragile. It feels permanent, like those marble doors, but it's actually not forever, not for long.
It's temporary. As long as hearts still beat beneath the ground, there is potential for change.
Here's a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've talked a lot about the masks.
And the secrecy.
Exactly. The poem says these aliens rely entirely on whispered deals and hiding from honest light. Their whole ecosystem is built on us not seeing clearly. So if their power depends 100% on secrecy and masks, what happens the moment we simply stop blinking?
What happens when we refuse to be distracted?
I just stare directly at the person behind the curtain.
The masks fall in?
The masks fall in. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep your eyes open, and I'll see you next time.